Hi everyone, welcome to week 3 of TESOL Methods with Field Experience. I hope you had a great week last week and I hope this one is wonderful for you as well. To recap, last week you were looking at approaches of second language teaching throughout history, and hopefully you noticed how the pendulum did swing in terms of the spectrum of what was popular from sort of one time period to the next, and how whatever was popular seemed to be a reaction to or a response to what had been popular immediately before it, and also the influence of the needs of those who were learning the languages. Did they need to read and write for their communication? Is that primarily why they were learning that second language? Were they trying to assimilate into a society, and did they have certain needs in that way? Was it a time of war where certain skills needed to be acquired in those who were learning the second language and acquired quickly? So lots of different influences, and of course we want to be informed as to what's happened throughout history with SLA, because that has implications to what is popular today in second language teaching, and more specifically, of course, for us in TESOL. So hopefully you took a look at that and you took note of the different theories and approaches that were shared with you. We looked at world Englishes, and that's something that often surprises people. Once they hear about it, it makes sense right away, of course, but we just don't think about it. And so hopefully you noted through your reading and through the video that I shared with you how important understanding the concept of world English is, and how there are differences amongst those who speak English around the world, how important that is. And so you took a look at those things, and also CLT. And the important thing about looking at CLT is not that it is the be-all, end-all concept, but that there have been, aside from people using CLT, there have been parts of CLT that have sort of been picked up and applied in other methods and strategies and techniques today. So it's good to know where it all started. And it is a teaching method that many will know in the field of SLA. So it's good for someone who's involved in TESOL to understand that. Something else that I hope you noted either last week, or at least that I hope you're picking up this week, is the fact that there are basically 4 major components. So yes, I hope you noticed that there are 4 major components to second language acquisition and TESOL, more specifically for us: reading, writing, speaking, and of course listening. And listening is something that we'll be working on in this coming week. That said, and within those components, having implications for all of them, are vocabulary, some major ideas. Vocabulary, for example, and grammar, and they all affect communicative competency, which I hope you will notice this week. So this week, let's get to that. Speaking of which, one of the major things you're going to be learning about is listening, and you're going to start talking about, or at least reading about, speaking and those components of TESOL. So when you read about listening, I hope that you'll take special note. There's a lot there. There are quite a few theories. There's some history to be read. And of course, again, all of the history has influenced what we now know today as the role of listening. And really, there's still research happening, and that's something that you'll read about as well. They're still looking into everything that's involved in listening and how listening well affects someone's acquisition. So things that I hope you'll notice, of course, the theorists and various ideas that are shared. I hope you'll notice the role of metacognition, not only in listening, but you'll see that role having an important influence or implications for other areas of second language acquisition. So take note of that, please. The role of top-down and bottom-up processing, you'll see that mentioned time and time again. You'll first note it in the description of the listening process as it relates to TESOL, but you will certainly see it again in other areas of second language acquisition and English as a second language as well. Let's see. And also I want you to notice, not only are you thinking about listening in terms of how do we help students listen and understand what they're hearing, but what role does listening have, simply listening, in the acquisition process. So you will read about something called the silent period, and you'll read about how many have, and there's been a bit of debate, but how many have seen the role of allowing students to not express, not pushing for expression in any way, and just allowing students to absorb what that role, how that role has been discussed, and what people have recommended throughout history as far as the various theorists that we're going to read. Many have debated exactly how long we should have students listen without, asking them to express anything, or at what point within the acquisition process, within that learning process, we should have them listening. And so take a look at that, because that's certainly something that is going to impact your teaching very directly, I would imagine. Even if you are not looking to be a foreign language or ESOL instructor, you're going to have these students in your classroom, and so this would definitely have implications for you. And then you'll also start to read about speaking, and a major debate, a major issue that you'll want to read about and note is accuracy versus fluency. How much do we want students to speak grammatically perfectly? How close do we want them to get to that? How much do we want to push perfect pronunciation and loss of accent? As opposed to how much do we want to acknowledge and just accept perhaps imperfections in grammar or a lingering accent, as long as we see usage, as long as we see them trying and talking and getting that language out there and processing. Because studies do show that the more students are willing to talk, the faster their rate of acquisition is going to be. So what do we do as far as error correction and our input? How much do we push grammatical accuracy versus, fluency and production of language? So those are your concepts for this week that you're going to be looking at. As far as assignments, and I apologize for the breaks. Yes, I'm still using my phone. My computer is still a fire hazard. So the only other thing that I wanted to talk about this week was assignments. So this past week, we've had week 1 and we've just completed week 2. And given that we had our first 2 weeks and we had some technological issues for some, we had some registration issues for others, what I did was I basically am accepting anything until this coming Friday, which would be September 8th. I'll accept anything from the first 2 weeks up until September 8th, Friday at 11:30, as far as weekly assignments. And from then on, we're going to do what we talked about earlier, which is have our weekly threaded discussions due on Wednesday, our initial posts, and any responses that are required, they will be due on Friday of that week. So Wednesday, Friday will be the policy from now on, as I stated earlier, but I did want to make an exception. We had a holiday thrown in there. We had some issues that some students had that were reasonable. And so it's the beginning of the semester. Let's all get on the same page, get on board, get our texts, get everything set. And now that we're all established, we're going to go with that Wednesday, Friday rule. The only other assignment that I want to discuss right now, because it's become a discussion or something that I've been asked about a few times, and I'm thrilled. It means that my students are thinking about this ahead of time and not leaving it till later, which is how you want to do it, is the field experience. So many of you are already embarking upon getting yourself set with a contact, getting yourself into a classroom for those observations and potentially those interviews or discussions that you might be able to have with students or instructors, depending on what the instructor you're working with decides. And that's wonderful. I'm thrilled with that. So just to clarify something that I also put in announcements, for the field observation and reflection assignment, you do have to do 10 hours. It has to be in an ESOL program. I have given a list provided to me by someone at the university of many programs that are available in our area. And though that list is not one that you'd have to choose from, that is simply for those who contact me and just say, I don't know where to go. I'm not yet working in a school. I don't have any program near me. I don't know where to begin. Can you help me out? Can you give me some direction? These are good places to start at. I did have one of your peers contact the Radner program, and apparently, I believe it was Radner. I'll double check after making the video and be sure. But I did have a student contact Radner, and that student told me that the person in charge of that program is no longer in a position to entertain having people in the classroom. We'll just put it that way. Has some issues going on. So that program may not be the one to explore, but there are others listed there, again, recommended by people at the university. So hopefully that will help. That being said, ideally, if you know of a program, if you're working in a school, if you have contact with a program, it doesn't even have to be in a school. There are programs happening for second language acquisition for ESL all over. So if you know of a qualified program that would fulfill the requirement of allowing you to see these instructors of ESOL in action, implementing strategies that we're going to be talking about in class that would allow you to see students who are second language learners of really any age, that would allow you to be present in that classroom and kind of observe and learn from it, that's fine. Let me know if you have any questions as to whether it would be an appropriate program for you to observe or not, but that is perfectly fine with me. And the idea of that assignment, of course, is not only that you go and observe and learn from what you observe, but you're observing in an informed manner. So you're reading all of these things that I just talked about, things that are going to be coming up in the coming weeks. You're thinking about things that have come up in discussions that you've offered, that you've kind of compared notes in so to speak, with peers, that you're looking at these things that we are learning about and seeing them come alive in the classroom, watching instructors possibly use one strategy as opposed to another, and discerning for yourself, would I have done that or not? Or seeing a student do something that you read research on in the past, or rather in your text or during an assignment, what have you, to see those theories, strategies, approaches that we've read about come to life. That's really the important part of that field experience assignment. And that's the kind of thing that you're hopefully going to be taking notes on and eventually including in your reflection. So I'm going to end because I have gotten too long this week. Apologies for that. But I did want to clarify that for you. And as always, any questions, email me on that. And I've fielded some already, and they've been great questions, and I'm happy to do it. Okay, all that said, guys, you've got some fun stuff to read about this week. This is Wednesday, September 6th that I'm recording this. I will post the folder Friday morning, and that'll be for that following week, and that'll be Friday 9/8, as I said, that I'll post the folder for the week. And otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.